Are you new to the animal agriculture industry and want to speak the language of your customers with confidence? Get ready because starting September 3rd, we're launching our brand new poultry lingo course. Whether you're in sales, support, or simply stepping into the poultry world for the first time, this course is designed to give you the real-world vocabulary and industry insight you need. The course includes 3 focused modules: hatchery, layers and breeders, and meet birds, each just 4 weeks long, with live, interactive sessions every Wednesday. Learn directly from experts in a hybrid learning model that fits your busy schedule. You'll also hear from guest lecturers with practical experience in the field, and if you're a returning student or part of a corporate team, don't miss out on our exclusive discounts. And don't worry, swine folks, we're also launching a new session of our trusted and proven swine lingo course at the same time. Spots fill quickly, so email us at technical@animistic.co to reserve yours today. Speak the language. Serve your customers. Start with lingo.
Welcome to The Real P3. I'm Dr. Casey Bradley. Today's episode brings together all 4 interviews from the NOVUS book launch, Nutrition and Production Strategies for Today's Sows. NOVUS has long been committed to advancing science and education in our industry, and this book continues that mission, bringing together experts from North America and Europe to share insights on nutrition, reproduction, and sow performance. You can find the full video series on YouTube, including a Spanish version of our final conversation with Dr. Antonio Palomal. We'll start with Dr. Laura Greiner from Iowa State University, followed by Dr. Brad Lawrence from NOVUS International. Together they explore the evolution of sow nutrition, from understanding amino acids to redefining mineral utilization. Next, we turn to Dr. Timothy Stefanski from the University of Missouri, who dives into the genetic and environmental factors influencing reproduction, especially the impact of heat stress on sow fertility. Finally, we close with Dr. Antonio Palomal from Spain. This segment includes an English voiceover of our in-person Spanish interview, where he discusses sow mortality from a global perspective and why micronutrition may hold the key to the progress. Spanish speakers can listen or watch the original version on YouTube. Our first guest is Dr. Laura Greiner, Director of the Iowa Pork Industry Center and a leading voice in sow health and nutrition. Dr. Greiner and I discuss how sow nutrition has evolved over the past 25 years, from basic amino acid formulation to precision feeding and management strategies that support longevity and livability. Well, welcome, Dr. Greiner, to the NOVUS book launch. You wrote a chapter in their new book. I have the first one on my shelf. I just got my second copy. I'm really excited to read it, and I do use it as a reference. I pull it out. It's really within my grasp, but obviously you spent your career on nutrition, and you're one of my mentors and people I've looked up to in my career, especially when it comes to sow nutrition. So I'm curious if you can give us a high-level overview of how sow nutrition has evolved in the last 25 years.
Yeah, that's a great question, Casey, and thank you for the compliment. Certainly, we think about sow nutrition when I would have started in the industry, which was about that long ago. We were really focused on just lysine, right? Let's just figure out what she needs in terms of lysine and lactation, and maybe figure out what her feed intake program should look like. And so now today we look at these sows who have enormous feed consumption, who have great total borns, and they're milking a large number of piglets. And I think we've come a long way. Certainly today we can see our sows don't necessarily always lose weight, which 25 years ago we assumed they would always lose weight. But I would still challenge us that we don't maybe know enough quite yet in gestation how to take care of that sow as we're getting her ready to go into that lactation period.
Yeah, so the book discusses both traditional and modern feeding strategies in sows. And obviously we start with lysine, and now we can go down further in the amino acid realm of knowing those. But how do you balance the evidence-based or maybe nutrition of the past with innovation when you're thinking about sow feeding programs?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we really have to go back, some of the tried and true equations of when we think about protein that, Noble and others have put together with protein and energy. Those don't change, and they haven't changed even as we have changed our sow. And so there are pieces of our evidence-based nutrition that has to stay first and forefront in our conversations. But when we think about the technology, and I go right to feeding systems and those types of things in our barns, how do we engage that to address this need of the sow? And one of the challenges I think we still have is we don't fully know how amino acid requirements transition throughout lactation. We have an idea, but we maybe don't fully understand how that is moving. And so I think once we understand that, using that more modern technology of feeding the animal at the day of, and those requirements will help evolve her.
Well, I think that kind of segues into a good question is how do you expand the role of precision nutrition and how it's being applied by management? Because that's been one of our biggest hurdles is to get the technology in the barns, but then to get the management to use it right.
Yeah, that's always a challenge, whether it's in gestation or lactation. You have to have people that are willing to understand the technology, spend time with it if it needs repairs, and really figure out how to best use it. I look for that technology to continue to help our animal caretakers recognize when animals are off feed, to be able to recognize when animals aren't getting up appropriately, so even just approaching the feeder, let alone quantity of feed that they're eating. But then we can of course move into more of the advanced pieces of timing those growth needs or those lysine needs at a more appropriate time point based on mammary function and need. But initially, I really just want to see precision technology covering the basics that help alleviate some of the day-to-day burden that our animal caretakers have of just going around and managing the animals.
Yeah, so we're prior to the Pig Livability Conference, and Dr. Stefanski mentioned it a little bit about nutrition and body condition. What is the number one impact of sow nutrition on sow livability and longevity?
That's a good question too. You're asking lots of great questions today. I think that's a real challenge for us. There's a lot of different points in the sow's lifetime that we could have potential impact on her livability. And it starts all the way back while she's still suckling on her mom, and potentially even before she is ever even conceived when we think about oocyte development and some of the process that occurs there. So I think we as nutritionists have to pause and think of some key moments and go, where can I make the biggest influence? Right? I was just reading some information from Chantel Farmer and going back to the different 3 stages of mammary development and saying, okay, well, between day 90 and puberty, there's a potential of changing mammary development by 45%. And then stage 2, there's another opportunity. And then at farrowing, there's another. And so as we think about nutrition and we think about longevity and functionality, we have to pause and really map out where those key points are and make sure we're meeting her where she needs.
Definitely. Thank you, Dr. Greiner.
You're welcome.
Next, we are joined by Dr. Brad Lawrence, Global Swine Research Leader at NOVUS International. Brad and I share a long history in sow nutrition and trace minerals. In this conversation, he challenges us to rethink what we know about mineral nutrition and how bioutility, not just bioavailability, can shape productivity and performance. Well, I am here with Dr. Brad Lawrence, another one of my mentors and key people that was involved in my research and master's degree, at least way back when. But Brad and I share a common passion, and that is trace minerals and sow nutrition. Can you give us a little bit of what we've learned about trace minerals today in sow nutrition?
So the big take-home message that I would encourage all nutritionists to think about is forget everything that you think you know. And so now you're probably going, okay, why? What's he talking about? So number one, we don't really know what the nutrient requirements of the sow are, period, and certainly not the modern sow. There's very little published data around mineral requirements in relationship to productivity. So that's our first challenge. Second challenge is if you are formulating on a total trace mineral basis and you are just going after the lowest cost trace mineral, you are leaving a lot of money on the table on the sow side for a relatively minor savings on the feed side.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey listeners, real quick before we dive back in, if you're nodding along thinking, I've had this exact same issue on my farm or in my business, then now's the time to check out Nobi. Nobi is the step-by-step visual SOP tool that's making training easier across swine barns, poultry houses, Feed Mill 7, your living room television setup.ca. It's affordable, just $3 per user. Month, accessible, even offline, and adaptable to every part of your operation from onboarding to compliance. I've personally used it, and I can tell you it's as easy as posting on WhatsApp. So whether you manage a team or just want to stop repeating yourself, give Nobi a try. Use our affiliate link in the show notes to get started today. You'll support the real P3 and maybe save yourself a few headaches too.
Well, I would agree more. Let's talk about the role of mineral type. If we don't know the requirement, how do we formulate, and as a nutritionist, what's the role of the inorganic versus organic balance? And how do we help, make it more bioavailable? Or the term I like to use now is bioutility. So
that may actually be a better term. So there's some terms I don't like. I don't like organic trace mineral because the only thing organic trace mineral means is that the mineral composition of the final product has carbon somewhere in it. Other than that, that's a totally meaningless term. Chelated trace mineral, again, can be a little misleading and gets used and thrown around a lot for things that maybe are or are not actual true chelates by the true chemical definition. And so how do we make those decisions about what's the right level, what's the right source, those kind of things. We're actually doing a couple of really neat things. So several years ago, we were looking at biomarkers for bone and cartilage metabolism. And we actually found that those were very sensitive in a growing animal to source. So as little as 7 to 10 days, we could detect differences of doing nothing more than changing the trace mineral source. And more recently, we're delving into the area of gene expression and looking at how trace mineral source is affecting gene expression. And we're learning some very interesting things there about maternal nutrition on the offspring, and then even the impact of the trace mineral source on the animal itself that's actually receiving that source.
Well, very cool. And obviously, you're going to have a whole session. I'm going to write about it and talk about it after the fact. It's going to be recorded and I'm sure available out on social media. But obviously, Brad, this is the second book that I'm getting from Novus in less than, 2 or 3 years?
It's been 3 or 4 total from the first one,
conception
the second one.
to, But what is the importance and why does Novus invest in these types of resources for the industry?
So the leader of this project, Dr. Marisol Castillo, has a passion for the sow. And this actually has nothing to do with Novus. It has nothing to do with our mineral portfolio. In fact, the chapter in the second book is the first one in which we have really focused in on anything really related to our trace mineral source. And the goal of this project is when you look at the sow, there's not really a good resource or set of resources out there specific to mom and specific to her impacts. So this is a dedication of Novus to the pork industry globally to try to bring awareness to the sows bring some new knowledge by some leading global experts. That's one of the other challenges of some of the previous attempts have been very North American focused or very European focused. This is very much an international effort where we're bringing in the experts regardless of where they reside globally to provide some insights.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you for doing it because I appreciate it. They're my go-to reference for Sal, right? This updated version. And who wants to read my dissertation from, I'm not going to say how long ago now, but thank you, Brad, and thank you, Novus, for putting out another great reference material for our industry.
You're welcome.
Our next guest is Dr. Timothy Szafranski, Missouri State Swine Breeding Specialist and one of the leading experts on reproductive physiology. Dr. Szafranski shares valuable insights from his research on managing reproduction through genetics, environmental stress. Dr. Szafranski shares valuable insights from his research on managing reproduction through genetics, environmental stress, and management, with a focus on how heat stress impacts sow fertility and long-term herd success. Well, back here in Omaha at the Novus book launch, and I have Dr. Tim Szafranski, one of the leading reproductive physiologists in swine and other species, I'm assuming, at the University of Missouri. But it's great to have you. Can you kind of start out with kind of what your research program is at the University of Missouri today?
Sure. So, Casey, just one correction. It is only swine. So,
good.
So professionally, I work exclusively with pigs. And so my work is in swine breeding. So it's kind of a blend of genetics and reproductive management. And so I would argue that we use reproduction to leverage the genetic power. And so I look for opportunities there. And so through the years, I've looked at a lot of gilt development work. I've looked at different, when we were weaning really short periods of time, we looked at effects of lactation length and how to mitigate the challenges that presented. And kind of fast forward 25 years or so, last 10 years, the last 15 years maybe, it's mostly been heat stress. Really a lot of work in the heat stress area, and particularly on the sow.
And what happens with reproduction with heat stress? What are the main factors or issues that we face?
So it varies by farm, but we know the seasonality of reproduction. So farrowing rates go down, pregnancy rates go down, expression of estrus is less normal, age of puberty is delayed, cycles become irregular. When we look at the boar, sperm production goes down, sperm quality goes down, it can be for several weeks. And really a lot of the work we've done in the last 10 years is looked at impacts of heat stress on the fetus. And so we followed those pigs whose mother was heat stressed during pregnancy and looked at, and they're different. They grow differently, they have different body composition, they have different reproductive performance. They're just a different animal.
Yeah, I always joke to say that my mom was heat stressed and that's why I'm short and chubby.
Wow.
So, but yeah, what in your chapter you wrote about, production strategies and reproduction. What are some of the key things we've learned in the last 25 years to maybe help reproduction in heat stress or, mitigate it? Because obviously we're changing generations as well through epigenetics and
Absolutely.
Different things.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So if we focus on heat stress, I'll tell you when we started, the first time that we wanted to do something on a commercial farm, I reached out to a farm that I've worked with a lot since I've been at Mizzou, and they were willing, at the time, I think they were about a 1,200 sow farm, and they were willing to have us, and I said, okay, just so that I know kind of benchmarks, how much does your farrowing rate typically drop in the summer? And they said about 2%. And I said, well, you're probably not a good farm then to look at the effects of heat stress. And so if I have a really short time, I will say we can manage heat stress by doing everything right every day. That's easy to say, right? And what does that mean? So it means that we have sows in good body condition. It means that whatever our cooling mechanisms are maintained and adjusted properly to provide the best environment possible. We may use different feeding strategies, and then it's just recognizing when sows need attention.
Yeah, I was going to say, coming from the north and managing sows in different environments. I managed sows in Wyoming, Minnesota, Michigan growing up, which is humid as well. But then moving to Arkansas, with the heat and the humidity, it was a different beast to kind of control that. So what has been some of the, I guess, newer technologies that are helping us kind of mitigate heat stress? Is it fans? Is it, we've heard of cooling pads, different things like that. What are some easy things that you could change tomorrow in barns to help that sow from an equipment perspective?
So I would say the easiest things to do on most farms is to fix whatever you have. So I'm in barns with evaporative cool cells where the cool pads aren't fully wetted, right? And they're too clogged up with minerals, and so the water doesn't disperse. So then we're not taking advantage of that surface area. I've been in farms that use drip coolers for sows. And in Missouri in particular, we have hard water, and I know they do in other states. Those drippers get plugged up. And so if we want half a gallon to a gallon an hour to drip, and it's not dripping and I watch it for 5 minutes, we just have to manage what we have. Make sure that our nipple waters are flowing at least a quart a minute or a liter a minute. Hopefully it's cool water, right? And so it's really just those everyday maintenance things on the cooling systems we have is probably the first step that every farm should take.
Now, in the introduction, you mentioned genetics. Is there some things that we've done through genetic selection to also help this issue?
I'd argue we've made it worse. Okay, so we've selected a sow that ovulates more, gestates more, lactates more, raises more. We've selected a pig that grows faster with more lean muscle. Everything we've done to our animals genetically has made them more efficient and more productive, which means higher metabolic rate, which generates heat. And so they are a bigger challenge, quite frankly, than the pigs of yore.
Well, thank you so much, and hopefully everybody gets a chance to read your chapter.
All right, thank you.
Well, we're here at the Novus book launch with another author of a chapter, and we're going to talk about sow mortality. Bet you didn't know that was my PhD work, was sow longevity and mortality, and that's because I grew up in the swine industry from a little niña. And then throughout my career, I didn't have enough tools to fix sow mortality. Can you talk about some of the main challenges around sow mortality for the farmers and the producers and the staff in the facilities?
In my case, 4 decades, the acceptable mortality levels in our companies in Spain, in Europe, in the United States, in Latin America, we work with a maximum of 3% mortality. This mortality increased up to 5%, 6% at the beginning of the year 2000 to 2005. In the last 20 years, it has doubled. We have gone from 6%, 5%, 7% in Brazil, United States, Canada, Spain, all of Europe. We have gone from 12% to 14% on average, with data that can reach out until 16, 18% in some countries. In other cases, going down from 10% today. We have very few farms with less than 10%, but we have a genetic in Spain, for example, the Iberian, a more rustic genetic, produces a little less, but it also has grown a lot in its production in recent years. It has grown the same 0, 2% more piglets each year, and its mortality is still 2.5 or 3%. So this makes us think that metabolically, we have very different animals. And the mortality in farms is not so much an infectious problem, because the average is the same in the country with pairs than without pairs. In Brazil or in Australia, there are free of pairs and the mortality is the same. There they have other conditions that also affects the sow a lot, because pigs thermoregulate very badly. Their thermoregulation capacity is very weak. So that is one of the first causes. The second, we have made animals that grow faster, that have more muscle and have less fat. The opposite of the Iberian, in such a way that have more muscle, also the metabolic effort is superior. They produce more endogenous heat, and at the same time they oxidize more easily because they have more fibers, white than red muscles. We also know that these cells have worse capacity to respond to stress. They have more pro-inflammatory processes, they have more hepatic problems. So we have an equation, a process that is multifactorial, but we have the nutritional factor of handling prime the nutritional factors infectious, because the infectious factor that causes mortality, except the serious case of PRRS. Focus, a serious case of PRRS with a high virulence strain can lead to high mortality, but in a short period of time, so in the end, the average of a whole year is not very different from not having it. So infectious processes are secondary. They are very important, but not more than in 1 every 3 sows. Sows die from infectious processes. 2 in every 3 sows, and if we eliminate 2 out of 3, we will be at 5% or less than 5%. It will be difficult because the metabolic effort is much higher. The lactation has been extended. This means that metabolically, we had different animals. We started with 114 days of gestation, and we're already at 117. We have longer farrowing duration. The metabolic effort required of the sows is also greater. And it's no coincidence that the majority of sows, 75%, die 2 or 3 weeks before or after farrowing. This is precisely when they have the most metabolic difficulty maintaining homeostasis.
What are some of the key things we can do from a nutrition perspective to prevent sow mortality?
In terms of nutrition, we had to treat it in a global way. For many years, we have worked in the nutrition of sows, no less than we have worked in the nutrition of piglets or in the nutrition of fathering. Much less in recent years, a lot has been done to make a more precise diet for the new requirement of pigs that produce a lot of more piglets, but most of the focus has been on macronutrition, protein, amino acids, essential amino acids, fiber. Most of the work has to do with fiber, the energy, the calcium, this phosphorus, derived from the reduction of phosphorus adjusting the diet with phytase, which is very good. But we have forgotten the elemental. We had to go back to the basics. We had to go back to the elemental, the micronutrients, because like people, we are fed, and in civilized countries, we have more food than we need. We already have enough protein. We already have enough fiber. We already have enough energy. But what about the vitamins and minerals? What about zinc, copper, manganese, magnesium, iron? We have piglets deficient in iron. We have piglets deficient in magnesium. And we have the deficiency of vitamin B12 also in people. We have to check this. We have deficiency in vitamin D also in people. We are very well fed, but it turns out that we have a deficiency in vitamin D, in B12, in magnesium. I think we also have them in sows. And what we're going to present is, in the chapter that we write, we reflect on this point. We're in the amount of feed that they are eating our sows in quantity, because the quantity is more or less the same. But shouldn't we implement a quality work more in micronutrients? Of course, vitamins, minerals, and other additives that are going to influence all of them. Minerals like that, magnesium influences the nervous system. It influences the development of the immune system. It influences the oxidative processes. These are just the problems that we have. All of the micronutrients do not produce endogenous heat. Their metabolism does not generate a metabolic effort, at least if they are available and if they are organic. But what about protein? Protein produces a lot of endogenous heat. Fiber. The second nutrient that produces the most endogenous heat is fiber. Not the fat, the fiber. Not the carbohydrates, the fiber. The fiber is more important, very important, but we have to take into account those balances and those difficulties that our sows have today. Larger oxidative process. They stress more easily. Their immune response capacity is lower. They grow very fast. They're cartilaginous. The pig is the animal that taken the longest to develop the cartilage of the domestic animals. The process of trochondrosis. And the minerals also influence. Of course, zinc influences a lot, vitamin D. Therefore, from the point of view of nutrition, I think we have to make an approach global and precise of all, because obviously without a single micronutrient, we are not going to succeed, but we have to work on micronutrition in the coming years without, of course, neglecting the rest. Thank you.
That wraps up this special Real P3 edition. My sincere thanks to Novus International for continuing to invest in the future of sow nutrition through research, collaboration, and education. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the Real P3 and check out the full video series on YouTube. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep striving to help animals and people thrive.
Hey, listener. Before you head out, want more than just another vendor. At Animistic, we don't just follow the industry, we lead it. Whether it's developing innovative products, navigating regulatory hurdles like a boss, or delivering training that actually sticks for your people. Pet nutrition? We're on it. Livestock solutions? You bet. Data, strategy, science, heart? All day, every day. You'll catch us on the Real P3 podcast, Coffee in the Barn, and at animistic.co, where science meets soul. Subscribe to our founder, Dr. Casey Bradley's LinkedIn newsletter, Manifesting Innovation, and keep an eye on your favorite client channels. Yeah, that's probably us too. We're faith-based, fiercely committed, and full of science plus heart. Want to be featured, collaborate, or just have questions? Reach out technical at animistic.co. Animistic, faithfully serving through science plus heart.